What was worst case of computer illiteracy you have ever witnessed? Story 1. My mom called the police over a pop-up ad on her PC. I told her there's nothing they can do because everyone gets pop-up ads. She said, well, I just want the police to be aware that it's happening in our area. I tried to explain that the internet isn't our area, but I gave up at that point and thanked the cop for stopping by. Poor guy had to fill out a report over it. Story 2, showing my 66-year-old dad how to access something on his computer, and I told him to click the X in the top right-hand corner to quit out of the window. Cue him taking a long pause before pressing the X key on the keyboard. It took all my strength not to laugh. Story 3, lady brought in her computer monitor, saying it wasn't working. I hook it up, plug it in, and press the power button, only for her to say, oh, I didn't know you had to hit that button. Story 4, a friend of mine is a network engineer for an IT contracting company that handles tech for various clients. One client was dissatisfied with their internet service, so called my friend's company to have them cancel the service with the current ISP effective immediately and schedule installation by a new ISP they liked better. Friend verified they wanted immediate cancellation and told them it would be a couple days before the new provider could install, so they wouldn't have service until then. The client confirmed this was what they wanted, so my friend had the old service canceled. Trigger the deluge of angry phone calls from client demanding a network person be immediately sent to come fix their service because now the internet wasn't working. It was explained to them that they had requested and confirmed cancellation of their service provider, and the new service would be installed in a couple days. They did not understand and demanded again that somebody come fix it. In the end, he agreed to do so and scheduled a field visit with them. For immediately after the new ISP did their install, they were happy with this promise and called to cancel his visit as soon as the new ISP did their install because the problem resolved itself. TLDR, client didn't understand that canceling internet service makes the internet not work. Story 5, I have had several people ask me why they can't use their computer and get on the internet when the power is out. Not even a laptop, but a desktop PC. Story 6, when my grandmother opened up her laptop after Thanksgiving, she called me and complained it's talking dirty to me. After several back and forths, it ends up the grandkids had forgot to close SoundCloud, so it was playing Jason Derulo on an endless loop. Story 7, my mom keeps Chrome open and then hibernates the laptop. I once turned her laptop off completely, and when she turned it on, she started yelling at me that I deleted the internet off her laptop because she's used to the browser being forever open. Story 8, my stepmother somehow changed the default language on her Facebook to Arabic, being that I wasn't at my computer to do it via TeamViewer. I had to walk her through resetting the language options over the phone. For a couple weeks afterward, I teased her with random posts in Arabic. Story 9, the reasonably computer-savvy farmer living with his family next doors got to try my racing game. I believe that it was NFSIISE back in 1997 or so. His mother was watching and berated him for driving recklessly and crashing into walls because he might break it. It was adorable in a way, but it also opened up my eyes to what a strange and abstract concept the digital world was to some members of that generation. Story 10, my grandpa, my word, bless his soul, not completely computer related, but he would always switch his phone off after doing any operation on it. Need to make a phone call, make a call, then switch it off. Need to calculate 12 by 16 on the calculator. Switch it on, use the calculator, and then switch it right off. Need to check the time, on for the time, and then off straight after. Thankfully, he has stopped doing that. He used to think that was normal operation of a cell phone, and that everyone did that. Story 11, I once worked as a temporary assistant for a nightmare of a boss. The biggest part of my job was helping her read and respond to the dozens of emails she received daily. First thing, every morning, I would print a hard copy of each new message and put in her mail file. She would read through the file, then write her responses longhand on the hard copies. The file came back to me, and I would type up all her responses and send out an Outlook. As the replies came in, I would print them out and staple to the old copy with her written replies to ensure the dumb temp transcribed her words correctly. The file then went back to her for her review, repeat, ad nauseum for 10 hours a day. Story 12, I worked at a call center for a while, right out of college. We were only allowed to use the computers for work stuff because viruses. One of my coworkers was taking notes, actual work notes, in Notepad, and our supervisor came up behind him and said that better not be a little virus box. She was like 27. Story 13, my grandma's computer is completely with toolbars and viruses, and so instead of toolbar, BizX2232 as her homepage, I changed it to Google. She asked me why I had downloaded Google on her computer and proceeded to get me to change it back. Story 14, I work with cell phones. This is a typical conversation with older people whenever I do a warranty exchange or an upgrade. Can you transfer my stuff to the new phone? Absolutely. So they'll still have my Facebook. Sure, it'll put the app on your phone, and then you'll just have to log in with your username and password. What do you mean, the username and password you use when you sign up for Facebook? Oh, I never did that. Oh, okay, well, I can show you how to set up a profile and get you started. So I want to have my old account with my friends and pictures. Story 15, I used to work for a tech support phone line. The worst one was trying to teach a guy how to click and drag. Okay, so just press the mouse button down and hold it there. Now move the mouse. It's not doing anything. Same conversation over and over again for 20 minutes. Finally, he got it. He didn't even sound that old. Maybe 40s or 50s. Story 16, I needed to print something out, but our printer at home was broken. So I phoned my mom at work and said, if I email you something, can you print it out on your work computer? She said, no, sorry, my Hotmail is on our home computer. I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, I use Hotmail for emails, but it's on our home computer. I haven't installed my Hotmail on the work computer. I said, well, you just go on the computer and go to www.hotmail.co.uk the same as you do at home. You don't need to install anything. She didn't believe me at all. She kept saying things like, but how can my Hotmail be on the work computer? Eventually, she managed it though. Story 17, my dad joined Facebook, and you could visibly see him typing commands into his Facebook status and expecting them to do something. Friend Paul reply to Carolyn search music, and so on. Story 18, around 2001 to 2002, my wife put the computer power cord into the Ethernet port and called me to come home from work at lunch because the internet is not working all morning. Story 19, one of my professors was pretty competent when it came to the internet except for one thing. Whenever we would watch YouTube videos, she would put the cursor in the center of the screen and just slightly move it constantly, so the time bar at the bottom would stay up. We told her several times to just leave the cursor over the bar and it would stay up, but she continued to do this, regardless if it was a 3-minute video or a 50-minute movie. It was the most distracting thing ever. Story 20, I once had to explain to a senior developer how a 6-line bat file that was copying, renaming some files worked. In the middle of it, she complained that if not for her kids needing one for homework, she wouldn't even own a PC. Her job was literally to write computer software, yet she couldn't decipher 6 lines of pretty simple code, and she was openly hostile to the idea of owning and using a computer in the first place. Edit, this was about 15 years ago, maybe a bit more. Story 21, my mom rang me in a panic saying that Shed deleted the Google. I asked if Google knew they'd been deleted and helped her find the icon for Chrome. Story 22, I had a coworker in his mid-40s who was going back to school for his master's degree and was complaining that Microsoft Word leaves too big of a space between lines, so he was typing all his papers in WordPad. I went on a computer to show him how to change the settings for line spacing. He came in the next day and saying that didn't work for him, so I had him show me what he was doing. It turns out he was hitting enter at the end of every line to advance the cursor to the next line like he was using a typewriter, so Word thought every line was a new paragraph. Story 23, my English teacher, who is most likely in her late 40s, has freaked out on multiple occasions when YouTube starts buffering. It seems like she has problems navigating the internet in general, which is worrying for a teacher who spent almost 2 decades in her field. Her incompetence is not limited to just the internet either. Story 24, we had hired an older employee in his late 70s, and it was my job to make sure he had everything he needed to be productive. Well, the first day, he comes and introduces himself and says he has a question and asks if I could come by his office. I say sure, and when we get there, his computer is not even turned on. He asks what button do I push again to turn it on. Needless to say, he lasted about a week and went back into retirement. Story 25, won my tech challenge dance. I think I broke Facebook. When Shed only zoomed in so far, you could only see a tiny corner of the page. All my icons disappeared. My computer has a virus. She managed to enlarge them the same way she had the Facebook page, I imagine, and couldn't see them because they were all stacked over one another. Needless to say, I disabled the pinch to zoom in and out feature. Problem solved. Now she thinks I'm some kind of computer genius and should have gone into the tech field. Am not, I just know where to locate settings, LOL. Story 26, my friend had to help her elderly teacher make some posters in school. During this, she saw this lady place a piece of paper on the keyboard of her laptop and close the screen down on top of it, stare at it for a moment, and then ask that it should scan now, right? Story 27, I'm trying to download the old RuneScape on my Mac, but it says I need Windows. Do you know what that means? I mean, I get old people not knowing the difference between OSs, but she's a senior in high school. Story 28, in my office. I'm usually the tech guy, since I'm the only one that really knows their way around a computer. With the fact that everyone knows how to use some simple software and basics like checking emails, no one has any basic knowledge of how computer hardware works. Whenever something goes down, it becomes such an emergency, according to my boss, that I have to drop whatever I am doing to come back to the office and fix this problem. So There's one guy in the office that calls gigabytes gigabytes despite the fact I've told him a few times he's saying it incorrectly, as politely as possible. I've been called up while being out in the field, complaining a printer isn't working. It was simply turned off, and no one thought to turn it on until I came back and flipped the switch. I found wires plugged into the wrong places. Think one end, a USB wire running from a computer for the printer being shoved into an open Ethernet port in the wall. What? Sometimes someone will complain of a busted computer monitor. It's simply turned off. These are all things that happen repeatedly. Mind you, sometimes I think they're trolling me. Story 29, an older woman took a job in my department after lying and saying she was computer literate the whole job, is on the computer. Come to find out she didn't know how to turn the computer on, didn't know how to use the mouse, didn't know any of the lingo icons, right click, start menu, etc. Nothing. She got fired that day. Story 30, I was at a public library. Don't even get me started why. Just accept that they made you request a time slot to use a computer on another computer, like select a time frame and enter your ID number, etc. Well, a kid got to the registration counter a second before me and looks at the screen, a single button in the center that says login. He reaches up and presses on it, waits, then taps on it again, then, frustrated, mashes his finger on it. In a huff, he turns around, tells me it is broke, then walks away. Now my turn to log in. I walk up, grab the mouse, and click the button. Story 31, early 2000s. When I worked at a local computer repair shop, we had an old lady, late 60s, come in and tell us her new computer wasn't working. I ran diags and everything was working fine. I asked her to show me exactly what she was doing that caused her to think her computer wasn't working. She grabbed the mouse, lifted it in the air like a TV remote, and began clicking. She said the clicker is broken. I then gave her a quick computer 101 and didn't charge her anything. Story 32, TLDR, trying to troubleshoot TV issues with an old lady who's using her phone and remote mixed up. I worked in a TV repair call center and was talking to a lady who was at least 200 years old. I asked the woman to turn to channel 03 on the remote. I hear beep, beep, like the beeping you hear when someone pushes on a touch-tone phone pad. Maybe she leaned on her phone when grabbing the remote. Anything happened? Did the picture change? I asked. No, can you try 04? Same thing. Beep, beep. And no change, no picture. I told her she's pushing the buttons on her phone, not the remote. Oh dear. I also had many people who thought the red message light on the digital box meant the box was recording them and sending it to the CIA. Bonus, we are in Canada, although with the latest issues with Samsung smart TVs recording people, maybe they were not as crazy as I thought. This was early 2000s. Story 33, my previous IT teachers. They just were so clueless. They didn't know how to use Word PP and didn't teach us Excel because we ran out of time. They stalled the out of everything else. Didn't know how to use Movie Maker and got genuinely scared when I opened up the command prompt, threatening to suspend me. Story 34, in my job, I had to walk a woman who was a chartered accountant at a medium-sized firm over the phone through how to open an attachment from an email, then how to do a few basic Excel functions, then how to reattach it and email it back. Not the most illiterate, but the most inappropriately illiterate given her job. Story 35, my nan. Her mouse wouldn't work, so I asked where her keyboard was so I could have a poke around in Device Manager and see if there was an issue. Her response, I didn't think I needed it as I only play solitaire. She actually threw her keyboard away. Story 36, couldn't tell if the girl was serious or not, but on Windows 8 or 10, and she needed to turn off the PC, so she got to the screen where it said swipe to power off with an arrow pointing downwards, but she was doing everything other than swiping down, e.g., swiping diagonal, left, right, and up. The problem is she was dead serious, and she kept asking why it wasn't turning off. Like, for real, lady, it says swipe to power off, and there's an arrow pointing downwards. Story 37, sometime years ago, my dad was on the phone with someone getting help about a problem on our computer. The guy on the phone told my dad to right-click. My dad wrote the word click on a piece of paper. Story 38, back in the days of Windows 98. This program has performed an illegal operation and will be shut down. Mom, Fildrill, what have you been doing on the computer? Story 39, I worked for a while at the Apple Genius Bar, so I've got a lot of really good ones. My favorite wasn't actually a problem with the computer, but a phone guy walks in, really mad, and tells me he just got the latest iPhone yesterday. It's his first cell phone ever, and it won't charge. I immediately go through the platitudes. I'm so sorry this happened, sir. We'll get it taken care of right away, etc., etc. While I'm checking out the phone, as he's ranting, I plug it in with one of our charging cables, and it lights up. Everything's working fine. I try again, still good. Oh, sir, good news, I tell him when he stopped to take a breath. It looks like it might just be a problem with the cable. Why don't we get it replaced for you? And we'll see how everything's doing. He stops, glares at me, and goes in a very thick Texas drawl. You mean to tell me you have to plug it in Long story short, I giggle because I think he's joking. He's not joking. He storms out with his working phone, yelling something like, "What's even the point of a wireless phone?" And then there's the guy who tried to clean some dirt off his brand new computer by dunking it in soapy water. Good times. Story 40, not a computer per se. But one time my grandmother wasn't able to get on any TV channels. She had somehow managed to child block every channel on her TV. Story 41, this may not be the worst. But recently I noticed my grandmother had 17 unread text messages on her iPhone. I told her that she had unread messages, and no matter how much I tried to explain it to her that the iPhone was not telling me a lie and that there were messages she had not seen, she did not believe me. She even went as far as to say no. I'm pretty sure the blue dots mean that I've seen the message. No, I'm pretty sure they don't. While I couldn't get her to believe that there might be more content to these messages than the couple-line preview, I think I eventually got her to understand the concept of read receipts, through analogies to actual receipts, and clearing out the blue dots as something like ripping open an envelope, even if you could see the message through the little plastic window. Story 42, not as bad as others, but I witnessed a relatively young coworker keep double-clicking on website links. I thought that was just old people who didn't grow up with computers around them. Story 43, dad walks in on my friend and I playing video games late at night, rips out the power cord of my friend's laptop, and exclaims, "Ha, I'd like to see you play now." Story 44, my co-worker complained how slow her computer was. She called tech support a dozen plus times, could never get it fixed. Brand new computer, by the way. Got told repeatedly there was nothing wrong. It would fix for a day or two, then go back to being slow. I sat at her desk once to show her something. Realized the mouse was on ultra slow drag mode. So I turned the mouse speed up. Her ergonomic mouse had speed buttons on the side, turned off the ability to use the speed buttons because she had clicked those by accident, and boom. Her computer was so fast now. The IT guy stopped at my office to ask me what I did at fix. He doubled over in laughter when I told him. Story 45, used to run a sales team. One day, I thought would conduct an initiative test on my team, turn contrast and brightness down on all screens. It took most of morning and tech out to solve problem. Was not my most productive day at work, but was entertaining. Also taught me that my team were not problem solvers and that I'm not cut out for working for a living. Story 46, I had this problem too. I eventually got through by explaining Wi-Fi is like a light bulb. Where the light shines is where the Wi-Fi is. Turning on a light at home won't make the office any brighter. Story 47, my grandparents still call emails eBays. My gran also refused to tell her sister, who lived 500 miles away, that she had a computer because we told her about Skype, and she thought her sister would be able to turn on her computer and see in her house at any time. I can't tell Margaret I've got one. She'll keep eBaying me. Story 48, my dad asked me to set up something so he could type a letter. I opened Word, and he began typing. A few minutes later, he calls me over to tell me there's something weird on the screen. I looked and couldn't see anything weird. Then he pointed to the cursor. I had to explain to him that it's the mouse cursor that you use to click on the buttons on the screen, and showed him how it worked. A friend printed something out on colored paper and wondered why the white part didn't print. She asked me if the white ink had run out. My mom calmed me down because the printer wasn't working. I just had to press the on button to switch it on. A client called me over to their house because their mouse had stopped working. It was wireless, so I asked if they'd changed the batteries. They had. I just pressed the connect button, and it linked back up. A client called me out because their Bluetooth keyboard had stopped working. When I checked their machine, they had turned Bluetooth off. My boss I work in IT talked about getting a new machine and asked if it would have one of those i6 processors. There are hundreds of them. Story 49, attention. Please keep AskReddit's Rule 4 in mind and do not post any personal information. Even if it's obviously fake, this includes, but is not limited to, phone numbers, email addresses, full names, screen names, social security numbers, or anything else that can be used to identify or contact an individual. We do not allow any type of personal information, even if it's supposed to be fake or if it's your own. Violations of this rule will result in comment removal and a ban. See Rule 4 for more details. Thanks, I am a bot. Please contact the moderators of our AskReddit message compose to our AskReddit if you have any questions or concerns. Story 50 was at a public library. There was an old lady and her husband who had sat down to use a public computer right next to one I was using. They were both probably in their 70s. Overheard the guy saying, "No, honey, you have to move the pointer to the inside of that box." I glanced over and saw that the old lady didn't know how to use Google, and that her husband was showing her how to move the mouse to click inside the search box to type what she wanted. Story 51, facts related, but too good not be mentioned. A coworker thought the fax was not sent as the paper came out on the other side of the machine. He expected the paper to vanish from where it was sent. We don't know how he came to that idea, but that's what he thought. He wasn't entirely sure how the whole teleport mechanism was supposed to work either. Story 52, I worked at Best Buy back in 2006. right when they had bought out Geek Squad, and were in the process of rolling that over in their stores. I was a Best Buy technician for a while. I was a Geek Squad member when this happened. Our phone rang, and the conversation went like this: me, thank you for calling Geek Squad. Kalamake is speaking. How may I help you? Woman on phone, hi, I was on your website, and I think your computers are on fire. Me, I'm sorry. What do you mean we have a lot of computers here and nothing is on fire? We would get a rare prank call here and there. W, I was buying something on your website, and my computer started smoking. I just wanted you to know so you could put it out. Me, confused, until it dawned on me that when she went to the Best Buy website, it connected to the local Best Buy, and that our servers were on fire, and traveled through the phone line to catch hers on fire. Miss, is there still smoke coming out of your computer? W, yes, it's getting worse. Me, you need to hang up now and call the fire department. Unplug it if you safely can, but call 911 immediately. W-O, okay, thank you. That was the end of it. I will never know what really happened, but I figured it was a typical dusty home PC, and the dust may have started to smoke. There's a few other stories, but that one is my favorite. Story 53, contractor out in the field asked me to text her an Excel document. Also, she can't figure out how to attach or upload documents, so she always faxes them. She sent an expense report once. All of the pages were blank except for one that had been used as scratch paper. I realized she had faxed them backwards and told her to resend. She asked me why I couldn't just turn the paper over. Story 54, my dad thinks everything on the internet ends in .com, and he refuses to do anything with a computer himself. So, if he wanted to show you the funny cat video someone at work showed him, he will say go to YouTube and look up funnycatvideo.com. Story 55, I have a lady who does a lot of account management and makes sure our documents scanned in from field work get uploaded to our online logbooks. She gets emails of these documents as PDFs from the technician's phone. She calls me because her copier isn't scanning to her renaming folder. Confused, I asked her what she was talking about. She gets the email documents, prints them, organizes them, and stacks on her desk, then walks over to the scanner and rescans them in one at a time to a folder, where she renames them and uploads them to the logbook. I try to get her to just save the document to the renamed folder and rename it there, but she claims the other way is faster and helps her organize better. She also sorts her email by person in Outlook and minimizes all of them, then waits for the person's name to be bold to see if she has an email from them. Once she opens an email, she refuses to do anything until that email is resolved because she will lose the email. I try to show her folders, but she just gets really angry and starts saying no over and over. Edit forgotten apostrophe. Story 56, when my wife was in sales and her client from Arkansas asked now if I put this on my internet at my home, they can see it on their internet at their home. The accent sealed it. Story 57, 1. Copied text from a desktop. 2. Remove the mouse from the desktop. 3. Attach the mouse to a laptop for click paste. My 37-year-old colleague at my workplace. Story 58, I hired this guy and had to take his picture for his badge photo. When I asked him to stand in front of the wall so I could take the pic, he said, hey, can I just use my LinkedIn picture? I hate taking pictures. Sure, no problem, buddy. So he opens his browser, Internet Explorer, and goes to the little search widget and types Google, which pulls up the search results for Google. And not surprising, Google.com was the first result. He clicks on it and pulls up Google. He then types in the Google search bar, www.linkedin.com, and not surprising again, the top result is LinkedIn.com. I'm standing behind him this whole time, trying not to giggle like a little schoolgirl. After we finally completed our amazing journey, and he gets his LinkedIn profile pulled up, it's a pic of him in a tuxedo in front of palm trees in Hawaii. No, dude, you can't use that for your Fing badge picture. He didn't last long with us. The worst part of the whole thing is he types something like 5 words per minute. The whole ordeal couldn't end fast enough. The computer forgot my password. Story 59, I work at a computer lab at my college, and some girl was printing off colored photos from the black and white printer and rescanning them into an email. When I showed her that it is easier to just take the colored picture from her flash drive and put it in an email, it was like she had an epiphany. She ended up buying me a monster for saving her so much time. Story 60, I support the electronic medical record at a hospital. This was an actual conversation I had with a physician. Me, okay, Dar, I just need your IP address so I can remote in and take a look at the issue. Doctor, I'll not give that to you. You do not need to know where I live. Me, no, doctor, that's not what an IP address is. Doctor, I am not telling you where I live. Me, okay then, let's just try to walk through this over the phone then, size. Story 61, one of the guys I worked with apparently had a prank pulled on him at work, where he got his screen flipped while he was away, without his computer locked. His answer was to flip his entire monitor upside down, so that it was in the right orientation. Our office then upgraded to a new Windows version, so it reverted back to correct orientation. He couldn't unlock his computer for us to fix it, as everything was upside down. On the login screen, he asked if he needed to type his password in backwards in order for it to work. Turns out he just didn't have numlock on. Story 62, my mom was coming to visit and was going to bring her laptop for my husband to work on. I called and reminded her to bring the power cord for her laptop. She replied, "I don't need a power cord. I have Wi-Fi." Cue several minutes of me explaining to her that she needs to bring the thing that plugs into the computer on the one end and the wall on the other end. Story 63, I feel bad for this one, but it was over 10 years ago, and it was my mom's first job after being a wonderful stay-at-home mom for my sister and me. She was an office secretary in charge of bulletins, schedules, phones. "Me, how was work?" "Mom, well, not great. I had to redo a lot of work today." "Me, oh no, what happened?" "Mom, a whole newsletter got erased and had to retype all of it." "Me, try to encourage and see if I can help." "That's such a bummer." "What happened? Did the computer freeze or crash?" "Mom, no. I was trying to click something and all the text turned blue, and then when I clicked the keyboard, it disappeared." I then showed her on my computer about Control-Z and all other life-saving shortcuts. She was so amazed and sad that she hadn't known before. Since then, she became the resident computer helper with all her Help Me chats. Be patient with your parents, folks. They'll appreciate it. Story 64, I'm a tech support intern for a high school. I got where's the button on the laptop 7 months into the school year. "So you're telling me you've had this laptop for at least 7 months, and you've never had to type in, look at the keyboard." Story 65, I once told over the phone someone to right-click something and select one of the options, and the user could never get it to work. When I came by later that day, I found the word click written on the monitor. Fortunately, this was back in the days of CRT monitors, so I was able to clean sharp a march from the screen. Story 66, my favorite. "Okay, I need your password for X. I never had a password. You had to have one to sign up. Well, I never had one." You old lying geriatric, write your down. "Before I keyboard slap you troubleshooting someone's internet connection, what version of Windows do you have?" "Hold on a second, it'll check." Several minutes go by. Client finally returns double pane casement. "Do you think this is what's blocking my internet?" Story 67, I finally have a thread to answer to. So, I had recently gotten my tech troubled auntie use Join Me when she needed my help. So one day, she calls me on Join Me telling me her application isn't going through. It's an online application that she fills out while I'm watching. It goes through fine, and she clicks submit. "So what's the problem?" I asked. The email says I need to fill out the application. She goes back to the original email, expecting that it would change. She has done this process at least 30 times, and it took me telling her that emails don't change to realize that simple fact. Needless to say, her nor her 30 clones got the job. Story 68, girl in my project group managed to upload a report, which should have been a PDF without the file extension. Nobody else in the project group could figure out what to do. I don't even know how you deliberately create a PDF file without the file extension. My best guess is that while upload, she saw that the file was called XYZ PDF and thought the PDF was redundant and deleted it. Worst part, even after explaining what went wrong, it happened again. The next time, it was her turn to do the weekly report, and again, nobody knew what to do. Nobody realized it was a file without file extension. Nobody tried to add a PDF to it. Even worse part, she was one of these people who look down on anyone who knows how to turn on a computer because she isn't a computer kitty and she has a life. She was basically proud of her illiteracy. Story 69, a woman brought in the monitor to her desktop so we could do a virus removal, and then argued with me when I told her we'd need the tower. She told me she purposefully left. Story 70, a woman at the office I worked at used a mouse completely backwards. She had top wire by her hand and just held on to the very tip for clicking. All her movements and clicks would have to be completely reversed, and she was, of course, oblivious. Once word got around, my whole team was hysterical laughing. Story 71, I had a client who was having trouble getting to their website. After a good 20 minutes talking to them, I finally realized that they were typing the URL for their site into the Facebook search bar. Story 72, I used to work in retail and had a customer yell at me to recover her lost data. She said it could be done because websites online said so. She had physically lost her SD card in her phone. Story 73 was in a Microsoft Office class. There was an older guy in the class, probably 60 years old at least, on the first day of class. The teacher was telling us to use the mouse to click on a Microsoft Word icon. This guy literally picked up the mouse and held it up to the screen. Story 74, I got kicked out of class in high school for moving the taskbar from the standard bottom to the left of the screen desktop and then locking it there. She said it was destruction defacement of school property because I refused to put it back. This was back in like 2000, but still, I'll never forget that level of incompetence. She was the typing teacher. I type with few of my fingers, but faster than most anyone. I fail because I refuse to type with all fingers.